"Emma, sit at the far end." The words landed like a slap, but I didn't flinch. I gave my mother a quiet nod and walked past the long dinner table adorned with lit candles, perfectly arranged cutlery, and crystal glasses, straight to the least desirable seat, near the kitchen door. I didn't expect a warm welcome anyway. It was my brother Tyler's birthday, and I wasn't exactly the pride of the family. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation. Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. "You're lucky we invited you at all," my sister-in-law, Madison, whispered as I passed her. "Don't make a scene this time." I hadn't even opened my mouth yet. Everyone looked polished and rich in their tailored outfits, seated under the chandelier that glittered like a throne room. Tyler, ever the golden boy, sat at the head of the table with his smug grin and designer watch that he made sure everyone noticed. His wife raised a toast. To Tyler, the most successful man in the family. Laughter erupted, except from me. I just stared at the water glass in front of me, my reflection faintly trembling in it. I wore a plain navy blue dress I'd bought secondhand. My hands were rough from double shifts at the Dot warehouse and late-night cleaning gigs. I didn't belong in this room, and they all wanted me to feel that every second. That's when Grandpa cleared his throat. The room hushed. Even Madison froze mid-sip of her overpriced wine. Grandpa Howard wasn't just respected, he was feared. 83 years old, but with eyes sharp as razors and a cane that slammed more verdicts than any courtroom judge. He turned his head slowly, eyes locking directly on me from the far end. "Emma," he said, voice calm but echoing across the room. "Is the $5,000 I send you every month enough?" My stomach dropped. The air turned solid. My fork hovered in midair. I blinked. Which money? Dead silence. Utter, raw, unfiltered silence. My mother's fork clinked against her plate and dropped to the floor. Even Tyler's expression cracked, brows furrowing, jaw tightening. But Grandpa narrowed his eyes like he'd just confirmed something he already knew. Then, with deliberate strength, he slammed his cane down on the marble floor. Bang. The chandelier above swayed slightly. He stood up, slowly, with effort, but power radiated from him. That's what I thought. Now all heads turned to my mother. She went pale. "I've been wiring $5,000 to your account for over 2 years, Emma. Every month. Religious. On the first, I thought it was helping you." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. "I never received a dime." My voice cracked. I never saw that money." The silence turned from tense to deadly. Grandpa looked at my father now. "Richard. Marilyn. Care to explain?" My dad's face flushed red. "We used that to help with Tyler's startup. You told us you wanted to help the family. We thought." "You thought," Grandpa interrupted, "that you'd steal from your own daughter, use my money, and lie about it." My mom's hands trembled. "Howard. We were going to tell you. We meant to." Grandpa laughed. A dry, bitter laugh that sucked the air out of the room. "You meant to." He pointed his cane at them. "You too smugly told me for years that Emma didn't need help. That she was too proud to accept my money. That she didn't want charity. And all that time, you were funneling into Tyler's account." Tyler stood up. "Grandpa, I didn't know. I swear I didn't." "Sit down." Grandpa roared. He did. My eyes were burning, but I refused to let the tears fall. Not now. I slowly stood up. "You told Grandpa I didn't want his money." I looked at my mother. "You told him I didn't need help." Her voice broke. "It wasn't like that. How many times did I cry to you, begging for help with rent?" My voice shook. "How many times did I tell you I was eating ramen for 3 weeks straight?" She looked away. My father opened his mouth. "Emma, we did it for the family. For Tyler. For Tyler." I repeated. "Always for Tyler." My nails dug into my palms. I worked myself into the ground. Took night shifts. Cleaned toilets. Ate from gas station shelves. And you were pocketing every month while you watched me suffer. I looked at Grandpa. You want to know the worst part? I still came tonight, hoping maybe, just maybe, I'd be treated like a daughter. A sister. Grandpa's face was stone. He turned to everyone at the table. If anyone here thinks what they did was acceptable, you're as much a part of this betrayal as they are. Then he reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a folded envelope, and held it out to me. Emma, take this. I hesitated, then walked over. Inside was a bank transfer confirmation. An account in my name. A new one. I've just wired you $120,000, he said. That's all the money they stole. And then some. Gasps echoed. And tomorrow. He continued, glaring at my parents. I'll be speaking to my lawyer. You are both cut out of my estate. Completely. Tyler included. Tyler shut up. What? Grandpa, no. You can't do this. I can and I just did. Then he looked back at me. Emma, would you like to switch seats? Or better yet, how about you sit at the head of the table now? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Because for the first time in that family's twisted history, I wasn't the outsider. I was the reckoning. I didn't sit at the head of the table. Not that night. I quietly took my purse and walked out of the dining room without touching a bite of the filet mignon they'd served. I didn't need a throne. Not then. What I needed was air. The cold hit me as soon as I stepped outside. I stood on a porch, staring out at the dark trees swaying under the sky. My fingers shaking. I didn't know if it was from rage, grief, or shock. Maybe all three. Behind me, I heard the door creak open. Footsteps. Then Grandpa's voice. You handled that better than I expected. I turned slightly. Better than I expected. He walked up beside me. Slower now. Without the fury keeping him upright. They've always underestimated you, Emma. Even as a little girl. I said nothing. Then I asked, why didn't you ever call me? Ask if I was okay. He looked at me, guilt heavy in his eyes. Because I believed them. I'm sorry for that. Truly, I nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in my throat. I don't need their pity anymore. No, he agreed. You need justice. And you're going to get it. 2 days later, I got a call from his lawyer. Turns out, Grandpa had already rewritten his will. That envelope he gave me. It was only the beginning. Tyler wasn't just removed. So were my parents. Everything, the lake house, the business shares, the trust fund, was being transferred to me. And people started calling. First my mother. She left a dozen voicemails crying and begging. Emma, please. We didn't know it would go this far. Can we talk? Then my dad. You're tearing this family apart. Over what? Money. Tyler didn't bother with fake tears. He just sent one message. You'll regret this. Enjoy being alone. But I wasn't alone. Because as the truth spread, people began to talk. Aunt Caroline called and admitted she'd always wondered why I looked so tired. Uncle Drew confessed they were told I had mental issues and was too unstable to handle money. They lied to everyone. About me. To control the narrative. And I let them. Until now. Later that week, I walked into a local law firm downtown, in jeans and a turtleneck, hair tied back, no makeup. Grandpa had set up everything. An office. A business. Name. My name. Emma Howard Financial Solutions. He didn't just give me money. He gave me a future. A real one. And I was going to build it from the ground up, with or without anyone from that toxic house ever looking my way again. It didn't take long before the backlash began. The family didn't stay quiet. Madison was the first to post something. One of those carefully curated Instagram stories showing her sipping wine, laughing with friends, typing out, "Some people don't deserve second chances. Entitlement is ugly." She didn't mention my name. But everyone knew who she was talking about. Then came Tyler's podcast interview, which he never thought I'd see. Sometimes, when you give money to the wrong people, they think they earned it. It's sad, really. I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on building what Grandpa handed me. I arrived at the new office every morning before 7 a.m. It was small, 2 rooms, and a front desk, but it was mine. I met with clients, took business development courses, and learned how to handle finances the way Grandpa once had. I didn't use his last name publicly. I wanted to make something that couldn't be claimed as a handout. Meanwhile, Grandpa wasn't staying quiet. He told every friend, every investor, every business partner in his circle exactly what had happened. And it worked. The more the truth spread, the more people started pulling away from Tyler and my parents. Tyler's startup lost 3 big clients in 2 weeks. My father's name was quietly removed from the board of a foundation he'd chaired for over a decade. And my mother? She stopped showing her face at the country club altogether. Still, they refused to apologize. One night, months after the birthday dinner, I got a knock at my apartment door. I peeked through the peephole. Tyler. He looked desperate. Disheveled. Eyes tired. I opened the door. Only slightly. What do you want? He shoved his hands in his pockets. I messed up. I said nothing. I didn't know about the money. I didn't know they were lying to Grandpa. Then why mock me every year for not having a real job? I asked. Why call me a burden? Trash. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I started closing the door. But he stopped it. Emma, please just tell him to undo the will. Or split it. I'm your brother. I looked at him dead in the eyes. No. You're the man who laughed while I struggled. And I shut the door. Hard. That night, I sat alone at my kitchen table. Tears threatening again. Not because I was sad. But because for the first time in years, I didn't feel powerless. A month later, I found a dusty box outside my office door. No name. No note. I brought it inside and opened it. Inside were photographs. Hundreds of them. Old family albums I hadn't seen since I was a kid. Pictures of me and Tyler at the park. Me helping Mom in the kitchen. My hand clutching Grandpa's when I was 5. At the bottom was a letter. From Grandpa. Emma, these photos are yours. They tried to erase your place in this family, but I never forgot who you were. Keep them. Frame the ones you love. And always remember, no matter how they treated you, your roots run deeper than their lies. I cried. Not because of the past. But because someone finally saw me. That same week, I was invited to speak at a local women's business conference. One of Grandpa's old friends had recommended me, and apparently, my reputation for financial guidance had begun to grow. I stood on that stage in a navy blazer. Hair pinned neatly, facing over 200 women from all walks of life. And I told my story. Not the sanitized version. The real one. I wasn't born poor. I was made poor. By a family that decided I wasn't worth investing in. Gasps, murmurs. And when I begged for help, they told me I was dramatic. Lazy. Useless. All while collecting checks with my name on them. The applause when I finished. It shook the room. Later, as I packed up my things backstage, a woman approached me in tears. My daughter went through the same thing. You have no idea what your story just did for me. I smiled. Took her hands gently. Then tell your daughter this. She's not broken. They are. That night, as I walked back to my apartment, I passed by the restaurant where Tyler and Madison once hosted their anniversary dinner. Their faces used to be plastered across the glass windows and framed photo. Now that frame was gone. Replaced with a for lease sign. They'd lost the lease. Another business gone. My phone buzzed. A message from Grandpa. They finally realize who the real legacy is, kid. Proud of you. I stared at the screen for a long time. I wasn't chasing approval anymore. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was simply becoming me. 3 months later, I stood outside the house I grew up in. Not to visit. Not to beg. To buy it. After Grandpa cut them off, my parents had tried everything. Remortgaging. Selling off furniture. Even quietly putting the house on the market without letting the rest of the family know. But the listing found its way to Grandpa. And then to me. I don't want to live there. I told him. He nodded. Then don't. Own it anyway. And so I did. I signed the paperwork with steady hands. Full cash offer. No negotiation. The realtor, a middle-aged woman with sharp glasses, smiled awkwardly when she realized who I was. You know your parents will have to be out by next Friday. I said, that's fine. I'll give them until Monday. I never went inside. Didn't need to. The walls of that house had seen enough of my tears. They didn't need my footsteps anymore. Instead, I focused on the life I'd built. The office expanded. I hired 2 staff members. Both women who had faced their own family betrayals and needed a second chance. We weren't just a business. We were a rebuild. On a rainy Friday morning, I got another letter. Handwritten this time. From my mother. Emma, I know you have every reason to hate me. I failed you. We failed you. I let pride get in the way of being your mother. I convinced myself that helping Tyler would help us all. But the truth is, I wanted to believe you didn't need anything so I could sleep at night. I see now that I was blind. And cruel. You didn't deserve any of what we did. I won't ask for your forgiveness. But I hope someday you find peace. Mom. I sat still for a while, rereading those words. There was no excuse in the letter. No manipulation. Just regret. And oddly, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like release. I didn't call her. I didn't tear it up either. I simply folded it, placed it in the drawer with Grandpa's letter and the photos, and closed it. Because that's where it belonged in the past. The next week, Grandpa hosted a small gathering at his home. Not a grand event. Just a quiet evening with a few old friends, some jazz music, and fresh lemonade. He pulled me aside near the fireplace. You know, he said, when I found out they stole from you, I blamed myself the most. I looked at him. Why? Because I gave them the rope to hang you with. I took a deep breath. You also gave me the tools to cut it. He chuckled. Then he handed me a worn-out leather book. What's this? My original ledger. From the first business I ever ran. I want you to have it. I flipped through the pages. Yellowed paper. Faded ink. Scribble notes and calculations. You built everything from this. I did, he said. And now you'll build even more. I hugged him. For the first time in years, I felt what a real embrace from family was supposed to feel like. Safe. Steady. True. A year after that dinner, I was standing backstage again, but this time at a national conference for women in finance. Over 2,000 attendees. Cameras. Reporters. Spotlight. When they called my name, I walked onto the stage in front of a crowd that once would have terrified me. I wasn't just someone who got a second chance. I was someone who created one. For others. For myself. As I stood there, ready to speak, I looked into the front row and saw Grandpa. He gave me the smallest nod. And that's when I knew. The dinner that tried to humiliate me. It ended up feeding the beginning of my rise.